The Adventures of Brian, the Blue Fruit Bat. Who would have thought? Who would have thought I'd ever write a book? But the little story behind the story is a number of years ago, I was sitting next to Arthur Goldstuck. Now, Arthur Goldstuck is a well-renowned author and speaker. And he was sharing that he was playing around with AI. And he looked across the room and there was his cat lying on the chair or somewhere in the room. And he went to AI and he kind of asked AI to say, let's write about this curious cat called George. And eventually he had this book that he created, prompting AI and writing and looking at different chapters. And he had this book and he put it up onto Amazon and it sold. And he was sharing the story and I was saying, you should have a whole series of these things because he was teaching through the eyes of a cat. And I thought, well, this is a really good idea. You could teach coding by the cat, and you could teach all sorts of cool things because people like the idea of animals. It goes back to kind of Aesop's fables where we learn lessons from animals because if mom or dad tell us or a person in authority, we kind of reject it. So we like to substitute that with an animal and we'll learn lessons from, some arbitrary squirrel in a forest, but we won't listen to a voice of authority from our parents. It's just the way we are. So I got to thinking about it and Arthur challenged me. He says, well, why don't you do something like that this year? So I went back and I was playing around with the concept and I was looking at it. Now, because of my name, Bruce Wade, I've been associated with Batman for all my life. So I started playing around with a concept about why don't I write about a bat? And I've done huge research into that. Bats are my thing, my animal. I walk out at night and they fly around my head in circles and follow me in the caves and all sorts of stuff. So I definitely have a bat magnetism. So anyway, so I started looking at this fruit bat, because fruit bats are big and they're kind of cute. They're not vampire bats. I want to steer away from the kind of evilness that we had. And so me and AI, we played around and playing with a number of different platforms at this stage. So this was back in like 2022. And early days of AI, so I wasn't getting too much out of it, but I did build this character, and I said, so what would this bat look like? And they go, this and this and this. Okay, what about this? And I said, well, what do we call it? And then Brian, the Blue Fruit Bat. And Brian wears this leather jacket, and has a team of people that he meets. His friends, one is a monkey and one is a cat, and the cat has mystical kind of powers and is the kind of Gandalf of the group, where the monkey is a wise old monkey, but he's a monkey, so he jumps around and does monkey stuff. And Brian the Fruit Bat is the kind of junior of the trio. But Brian has to go back to his colony and he's answerable to the great wise bat, and the monkey goes off and is answerable to the other monkeys in his troop, and the mystical cat just kind of hovers around in his glowing blue light. And slowly we kind of put this together, and we being me and AI, and I actually wrote in the front of the book is that it's partially written by Bruce, because without a doubt, a lot of the concepts came from AI, even though I was prompting them. And then we developed all the drawings and the actual artwork, and that all came out of AI by taking those prompts out of one side. This was before AI could do everything. You had to have all these different things. So I took that prompt out of here and I put it into here, and slowly these images came in. Brian with his little blue jacket, and then we added other animals. We've got the elephant and we've got the gorilla, and we've got all these other animals that these trio go out and meet, and in doing so they have a story to tell about a disaster in the forest where there's a fire and now there's an emergency meeting, and so they get together and they do all this ideas. And the first part of each story is about Brian in the forest with his friends. And then the second half of the book, it takes the situation of the first part, but it looks at a entrepreneurial scenario like that, like you have an opportunity that presents you, and it could be because of a fire, or a good opportunity that arises, like a new market. And as an entrepreneur, we see those as the same thing. They're opportunities to step into. So the second half of each story is a entrepreneurial development program. But it links back to that, and then we go back to Brian, and then they do the next stuff, and then we do that. And I've done that a number of times in that, and I've pushed them all into one book. And we've got how to run a business, how to start and run a business through ideas and opportunities, and looking at your market research and your sort of analyzing that market, looking at opportunities, defining a product, and then putting that product to market. But it's done in a way that's seen through the eyes of a little fruit bat with his friends. I think that's absolutely genius. I love doing this project. I would like to continue and add more and more stories, but we kind of limited with my output, and so I put them all together. We had separate books, put them all into one book, so it's a nice size book, and it's available. And I think if anybody is teaching entrepreneurialism, is teaching the mindset of how to start a business with primary school kids, high school kids, and adults of all ages, this book is a really good book, as it's really easy read, but it's filled with really good lessons that you would do at a business school, and they're all there, but it's done in a simple way that anybody can actually start a business and become like Brian and go solve big problems. Really happy with this. It's been translated into a number of languages, and at one stage we actually translated into Russia and sent copies to the Ukraine to be shared amongst some of the refugee camps, and I was very proud of that moment. We were able to help thousands of miles away, and have a little influence, and take Brian to fly across Africa into Asia and go and help out there. So it's available in 4 or 5 different languages already, and super keen. If you'd like a copy, let me know and we can share Brian with you. Happy to collaborate and help impact the world.